Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'd like to get started. First off, thanks everyone for coming out tonight and taking some time to learn a bit about our teacher transitions and onboarding at Maple Leaf Educational Systems. I'll get started right away with just a quick agenda for us. First, I'd like to go over just some of the house rules and the webinar format, and then I'll tell you guys just a little bit about me, your host. We'll have 3 topics today: the onboarding process before you even arrive in China, the first weeks in China, so learning a little bit about the orientation processes we have for you, and then the mentoring program at Maple Leaf. There's a few house rules just to keep it running smoothly. First, there's question and answer sessions after each one of our subject topics, where I encourage you, as I reveal some information, to take some notes of questions, and then you can raise your hand in Zoom during the Q&A periods, and I will give you the access to talk and happily help clarify some of your questions. We can't answer specific case-based scenario questions, but these are something that can definitely be done after an application is made with our recruitment team. The purpose of me being here today in my presentation is to clarify some of the broader aspects of onboarding and mentoring here at Maple Leaf. The specific case-based stuff happens more or less depending when you're assigned to a campus, and then the principals of each campus can speak with you personally and help you to clarify some questions. We also have a link to our employment site at the very bottom of this page. Should you wish to make an application, this can be done so at the end as well. First, a little bit about myself. My name is Jonathan Hodgson. I'm from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I completed my degrees in 3 Canadian universities: the University of Toronto, Western Ontario, and Prince Edward Island. I've been with Maple Leaf Educational Systems now for 6 years. I'll be moving into my 7th next year. 5 of these years, I was in a teaching capacity, and 4 of them was in a blended role of a part-time administrator and part-time teacher. This is what we call an educational coordinator at many of our campuses, roles very similar to vice principal roles. This year was my first year as a principal at our Zhenjiang campus at Maple Leaf, and that is currently where I'm posted and will be next year as well. First, I'd like to get started with some onboarding. The onboarding process begins the second that you sign a contract and you are provided a Office 365 email account. This happens very, very quickly once your contract is signed, and I'll get into a little bit more about what that means for your access to resources and support moving on. Your first few weeks are going to be quite busy upon signing a contract. The reason for this is figuring out the paperwork like work permits, visas, the British Columbia Certificate of Qualification, which is required to teach at our schools in the BC program, and work experience and references. Most of our successful teachers and candidates, they map this out in advance. So if you've considered signing a contract, or when you do sign a contract, it's good to move quickly on these processes. They can take a while, and the quicker done, the better. But we're here to help you along the process as well, and that's something that you can look forward to. One thing that we use very extensively at Maple Leaf is Office 365 and SharePoint. And this is great for the onboarding process, as, like I said, the moment you sign a contract with Maple Leaf, you are provided access to an Office 365 systems account. And this is used for much, much more than just email. And as the principal, I use this extensively with our new staff as well. This gives you access to technology training, curricular documents, scope and sequence, unit plans, resources, all at the very tip of your fingers the moment you sign a contract. Our system training hub contains a plethora of information that's useful on technology training, and it has all of our course-based documents, including resources, lesson plans, activities for all courses offered at Maple Leaf. Some particularly important things that I like to direct most teachers to upon signing a contract is, like I said, these course-based documents and teaching-related resources. One of the great things about our onboarding program and the use of SharePoint and 365 is that you have immediate access to everything you need to start planning right away. There's no need to save your planning and your pedagogical information until the moment you arrive in China. This is something that you can begin slowly chipping away at as you work through the summer months. I'll move into our first Q&A session here. So I've provided a couple frequently asked questions that teachers often ask me upon their arrival or when I get into contact with them. But by all means, please feel free to raise your hand in the chat group and I will happily answer your questions. Peter, go ahead.
During the onboarding process, do we get to speak to other teachers at our campus just to get to know the local area and some of the coworkers that we're working with there?
Definitely. Great question there, Peter. That is something that is definitely an option at most of our campuses. For me personally, as the principal, the first thing I will do is I will communicate with you upon receiving an offer of a contract. Through that process, you should have very quick communication with the campus-based principal who can put you in touch with our department heads, other teachers in collaborative efforts. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in the mentoring process as well. But short answer, yes, that is something that you will definitely have access to. If anyone else has another question, please just feel free to raise your hand. I'm also going to just put out a quick poll question that we had created. So feel free to answer our multiple choice poll as well, just to gather some information and perhaps raise some speaking points for me. This is great stuff. Thanks. So I can see here, it looks like for a majority, the communication with leadership is a strong point of the onboarding process pre-arrival. And to this, I fully agree. And this is something that Maple Leaf principals know as well within our system. We take communication very seriously. And like I said, me personally, upon a contract even being offered, I try to get in touch with the teacher immediately to schedule one-on-one Zoom conversations to sort of clarify any questions. And access to course documents is also seeming very popular. So like I said, one of the bonus points is our SharePoint database. Our curriculum hub has lesson plans, which although they are standard issue and they don't need to be followed point to point, they provide a really good foundation to look at over the summer for any new teachers waiting to come in. Great. Thanks for your input on that, everybody. Is there any other questions about the pre-arrival onboarding process before I move on into our next session? Daisy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering when we should start preparing.
Start preparing for what specifically?
Like for lesson plans. When should we start looking at them?
That is up to you. We do allow, and I'll go into this a little bit when we get into the next section as well. There is a 2-week orientation and Pro-D period before school starts, which gives you plenty of time to collaborate with your departments and other teachers. I always encourage teachers, like it said in one of the previous slides, start early and take it slow. So take small chunks, maybe each day go on, look at a few lesson plans, kind of get the idea together. And through the conversations with your department heads and school leadership in the summer, this is something that you can get a slow planning on. We have had teachers, of course, you know, they show up in August, no planning's been done, and there's plenty of time to get it done. We also offer a large amount of resources, including standardized first 10 lesson plans. So that also eases the planning process for most teachers. Any other questions I can answer before we move on? Okay, I'm going to go ahead into our next section. If there is further questions that come up later, just feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to help out. So your first weeks in China, these are some of the most important. And one of the reasons why I was asked to host this webinar as a principal was it's something that I take very seriously. And the mentoring and onboarding process has always been something very important to me since my first arrival in China 6 years ago when things were quite different. So this is something I've worked with a lot in the past. So the purpose here is to give you all an idea of what to expect upon arriving in China. And some of you may have already worked in China, which makes it a lot easier, or live in China. But for those who haven't, it can be a daunting process to adapt to a new country. The first thing to know is that the principals and the leadership of the school are very heavily involved in a 1-week orientation process, all the way from picking you up at the airport right up until that first day of class. And things that you can expect that are common across the entire system is, number one, a pickup at the airport. Like I said, moving to China can be a daunting task. So myself and other principals, we go with our foreign affairs secretaries and we pick up all staff at the airport upon their arrival. And that gives a sense of comfort to see a familiar face or someone you know to guide you through the whole way. The orientation process will also include tours of the school facilities, local area tours. There's a lot of team building and, you know, a little move away from the pedagogy Pro D and into the community and social Pro D. So tours of local areas, scavenger hunts, shopping areas, and also opportunities for shopping trips so you can set up your apartments. The orientation week also includes school-based professional development geared towards new teachers. This is quite often around cultural aspects of working in China, working in Maple Leaf, the Maple Leaf student, comparisons of Western and Eastern ways of learning, and what to expect upon the pedagogy in the classroom with Chinese students who have been brought up in a largely Eastern pedagogical fashion. And as an added bonus, you're also given a 5,000 RMB settlement bonus. That's about 1,000 Canadian. And that is in cash provided right upon your arrival. So quite often we tell teachers to bring some extra money with them just in case, but this also helps to provide a sense of safety and some covering to help make sure that you can buy your groceries, set up your apartment, and get the ball rolling upon arrival. The 1-week Pro D development series. So how it looks is when you arrive, there is what we call the 1-week orientation week, which is just new staff, school leadership, and any teachers who have returned early. And then the second week is our all staff intensive Pro D. This is 5 days where the entire day is just dedicated towards professional development, collaboration, and learning. And like I had said earlier, Daisy had asked about planning and preparation. There is a lot of office time that is attributed to this week as well, for the sole purpose of collaborating with your peers, getting to know everyone, and building your lessons together. Some of the topics that we like to include are authentic assessment and practice, some school-based programs and the extracurriculars which take place at Maple Leaf. This is a large one. We are a boarding school, so our students live on campus, and the extracurricular and school-based programs are huge to our kids. And this is something we like to take some time to explain and to find something that's also comfortable for you, the teacher, to join in and help these kids experience the community. We also focus on curriculum training, professionalism, conflict resolution, and ELL strategies, which is very important. Our students do all speak English. There's English level testing before they enter into the BC program. But at the end of the day, Chinese is their first language. So there is strategies that come into play to provide the best education to our kids. And that's something we like to focus on as well. As I said, the school culture. This is something we also like to take some time in the orientation week to pass on to our new teachers. Life at Maple Leaf is very different for our kids than in many other schools, wherever your home country may be, or even within China. It's a very special community, and the culture of the school is something that's, for me personally, very, very important, and something that we like to try and enhance and promote to teachers as well. So getting to understand what the daily life of our students is like, I believe, is also very important and something we focus on, as well as common behaviors, expectations, what you can expect from classroom management issues, which, spoiler, there isn't very many. Our kids are very, very well behaved. But these are things that we like to look at in the orientation week as well, to try and help get you ready for walking into class that first day. That concludes section 2. So we're at another question and answer phase here. Please feel free to raise your hand and I'll let you ask your questions and help you out. And I've also provided some frequently asked questions here as well, if you'd like to use these as a foundation to inquire. Navern, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you. Sorry, I had you muted there.
Okay.
Yep.
So I was speaking to one of my friends that was actually teaching in China last year, and she told me that the tap water is questionable, and I should rather buy bottled water. So is that true?
Sure. Yeah, that's a very good question, right? And something that will come up a lot. The tap water in China is undrinkable, and I would not recommend drinking it to anyone. That's an issue in many places of the world. But what we do here is we quite often have bottled water, or every apartment and all the rooms in the school have the water towers installed as well. And on the actual campus, that's all taken care of by our general affairs. So there's always fresh water in the tubs. And to our apartments, I personally order from the grocery store, just bottles of water, or you can get a tower installed as well. And there's water delivery men who will drive it right to your front door. So it's fairly painless, but yes, though not encouraged to drink the tap water. Good question. Any other questions? As we await, I'm just going to launch a second poll here to gather some information. Daryl. One moment. Hi, Daryl, sorry, I can't seem to unmute you. It says you're using an old version of Zoom. Would you like to type your question in the chat and I'd be happy to answer it? Just when I await Daryl here, I'll turn over to our polls. And it seems the overall winner for what to be anxious about upon arrival is teaching and curriculum at Maple Leaf. And rightly so. This is the majority of our lives as teachers, right, and educators. And this is where, as I said, personally, I try to make a strong effort to have these resources available throughout the summer. And the orientation and Pro D week is really a great time to speak to your peers, your number one assistants and academic mentors, and to really get a handle on these curriculum aspects and teaching at Maple Leaf. And this is why it's so important for our orientation process to really focus on this as well. As for meeting new people, we build lots of team building programs in as well. And, you know, our little communities at each campus work very hard together to collaborate across campuses, but also to connect new teachers to what their interests are. And this is part of the China mentoring program we'll get into in our next phase as well. And Daryl, what is the effect of China's tense relations with Canada presently? Have you noticed an effect? This is a very good question, which I had to explain to my mother earlier this year as well. To be completely honest, I have not noticed any effect whatsoever. The general population here in China is very accepting of foreigners for the most part. And even as a Canadian, I still tell people, I'm not afraid to tell them where I'm from. And I have not noticed any effect on this at all. And my campus is in a smaller city, so not as big as Beijing or Shanghai. But even speaking to my friends in those places, there's very little effect on the day-to-day basis. You know, the government is the government, and it's largely not a problem here. And I say that with very, very high confidence. At my school campus right now, I have South Africans, Americans, Jamaicans, Canadians, people from all over the world, and no one is treated differently than by the general population or Chinese colleagues or anything. So Daryl, great question. I hope that clarifies for you. But yeah, I have not noticed that at all. Is there any other questions I can help to answer before we move on? Okay, I will get moving then. And once again, if anything else does pop up, just feel free to pop up your hand at the next Q&A period or at the end of the meeting as well. So the final chapter of our story here is our mentoring program. This is something that I've been working on for, as I said, many, many years. When I entered into Maple Leaf 6 years ago, there was a mentoring program, and to this day there is at each campus, but it is something that really caters to the individual campus and is left up to the school-based leadership. So something that I've been working on with my colleagues this year is a system-wide mentoring program, something to establish common ground for new staff upon arrival, so that no matter which campus they're allocated to, they can have similar expectations upon arrival. And as I said, this is something that we're still working on. Due to the COVID pandemic this year, we were waylaid a little bit from our rollout, but this is something I'd like to speak on. It's what I personally do at my campus and what I know many other principals have taken, something that our Dalian campus has maintained since I used to work there as well. And the key part of this is trying to continually reflect and build and grow our mentoring program based on the input of our first year teachers. And this is where the most valuable information comes from. Starting a new program like this and simply just deciding as a principal what I feel is important is largely irrelevant, because, you know, I got here 6 years ago and everything changes on a yearly basis. And you can see there at the bottom, that's a younger me from 6 years ago with our mentoring team in Dalian, which kind of birthed this entire process. So the goals of mentoring and induction here at Maple Leaf, I've got some photos of my own campus and my own staff there as well. Took a second to just show off my team. The main goal is to ensure that new arrivals have a smooth transition to life in China. And this is really, really important. We want to make sure that teachers, when they arrive, do not feel lost, do not feel left on their own, and do not feel like they're having a difficult time to transition. And a lot of this comes from the help of school-based leadership, our department leaders, and even down to our secretaries who act as translators for staff in a large majority of situations. The idea is to provide as much support as possible to incoming teachers, not only with work, but also with social life, with adapting to a new culture, getting to find places where they can explore their interests in the city, and building the culture among our new arriving staff. Some of the things that make Make Believe stand out is our dedicated staff mentors. So when you arrive in China, there is dedicated people who are assigned to you, who are meant to be your go-to person. This could be the leadership team, this could be the department heads, this could be individual teachers, depending on the campus. At Zhenjiang campus, we will have China Life and academic mentors. So each incoming teacher will have 2 people to go to, one specifically for academic concerns, and the other is a person geared to them for China Life and for social aspects. How I personally do this is largely through personality surveys in the summer. So having new staff fill in a quick optional survey to get to know who they are, and then trying to pair them with the right person set on campus, so that when they arrive, there's a person, almost like an instant friend, the second you arrive. And as I said, the consistent feedback from new teachers is something very important to us as well. So for those of you that choose to sign on with Maple Leaf and come and experience a first year, expect your principals to sit down with you and ask you, you know, what could have been done better? What was done well? What should we work on next year? And this is something that our mentorship committee sits down and looks at. And we'd welcome you to join the mentorship committee as well upon arrival. The committee that I've built at my current campus it's small and growing, but it's with dedicated people who truly have a desire to ease the process of first year teachers, because we all went through it. Some common induction practices. These are things that you can largely expect across all campuses. And like I said earlier, small disclaimer, I'm speaking for Zhenjiang campus when I get into some specifics, but for the system as a whole, some common practices are things that we spoke of earlier, such as being picked up at the airport, the orientation week, the Pro D week, the social and team building activities. These are all system-wide scheduled practices that happen in our induction program. Also, the welcome messages and ongoing communication pre-arrival. All of our systems principals are expected to and very good at communicating with staff. The second a contract is offered, I send out a message to speak on Zoom with people. And each principal has their own way, but that communication is very important to us. And as we saw from our earlier poll, it's important to you guys as well. So that is well understood. Mentor programs will vary at each campus. As I said, when I used to work in Dalian, we had the personality matching and China Life and academic mentors. And this is something I brought to Zhenjiang as well, and something we hope to roll out on a system level at the end of this year, moving into next year. The Office 365 and SharePoint database and access, that is standard across the system. It's something that you receive access to right away, and you can communicate with the school-based leadership on guidance of where to go, what to look at. And it is very, very, very helpful. Our curriculum writer team has spent a lot of time building resources and scope and sequence plans and things that you can go on to get a look at what you will be teaching, what is the content, what are the activities, what are some ideas. Extremely helpful information. And the hands-on acclimation assistance is something that we're proud of as well. If you really need anything, we're there for you. We have our secretary team acting as translators. We have the general affairs office to assist with school-based issues in your classroom and things like this, and your principals and mentorship teams to help you get adjusted to life and society. Many of our campuses also work with, we call them Friends of Maple Leaf. And in my city, there's a fella named Jim. He's a really nice guy, doesn't work for Maple Leaf, but for a small fee of about 500 RMB a year, 100 Canadian dollars, he also assists with translating services, finding apartments, and many aspects of daily life that teachers often struggle with. So what's most important to know is that all the supports are there, and it's something we take very seriously. And this brings us to our final Q&A session. So once again, please raise your hands if you'd like to ask me any questions. I'd be more than happy to help clarify. And it looks like Peter. Go ahead,
Just
Peter.
wondering for your teachers or other teachers that you know of, I know the schools are mostly really remote campuses, not necessarily downtown. Do many teachers have the time to go into the city and do their own kind of leisure activities? Or are there generally things like maybe cafes or things close to the school campuses that are that rural?
Sure, great question as well. And yes, it is important to note many of our campuses are not in the downtown core, which personally speaking, I see as a benefit. But I would say yes, our teachers do often find time. I've worked in 2 campuses. The Dalian campus is located in a place called Jinshitan, and you can get to the downtown area of Kaifachu in about 30 or 40 minutes, and a plethora of restaurants, Western restaurants, shopping, nightlife, anything you could need. In Zhenjiang campus, where we're a 1-hour train away from Shanghai, which many teachers take weekends to go down to Shanghai to enjoy. And the city of Zhenjiang itself is only about a 30 or 40-minute cab ride. And that's fairly standard for most of our campuses. So to answer your question, Peter, I would say yes. Most teachers do find the time to travel downtown to enjoy extra time. And quite often it's done in group events too, right? Teachers will communicate on WeChat or social media and say, hey, I'm going downtown this Saturday, gonna go shopping at Metro and get some lunch, who's in? So yeah, definitely something that I encourage teachers to take advantage of and something that I believe many do. I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Kashin. Hope I pronounced that correctly.
Hi, how are you? It's Kesh.
Keshin, yeah.
No, I just wanted to find out, obviously, there's a ban in place at the moment with flights going into China. With the start of the academic year, well, with us needing to arrive probably in August for the start of the year in September, do you feel confident that we'll be able to make it into the country? Because I'm not sure what the situation is like there now. We've just been getting bits of information from where we are.
Yeah, really, really good question, and something that I very honestly, as a school-based principal, wish I could answer more clearly for you. At the moment, we need to wait on the Chinese government to announce when they will open up their borders to foreigners, and that's sort of the end deal. And of course, you know, being in a large system, there's rumors from connections on possible dates and times, but nothing is solid until we get that final word. What I can say is that, you know, the system and the schools will do their best to accommodate to whatever the situation is in August.
Okay.
Whatever that equates to is something that will be decided upon by our head office and our superintendent of schools. Yeah. Personally, I have high hopes that the border will reopen in July or at least August. I'm hopeful for that. My Chinese colleagues seem to say that they believe it will open in July or August. So at this moment, awaiting word from the government though. Yeah.
Thank you.
Daryl. Oh, sorry, Daryl. I got to get you on the chat again. As I await that, I will launch our final poll here. Okay, so feel free to pop in some answers in the poll there, just to spark some more conversation. And yes, Daryl, I'll need you to work through the chat function. Working remotely online, good question. Currently, this is what many of our campuses are doing. In Zhenjiang at my campus, we are doing a blended program, teachers here teaching live, teachers not teaching remotely. This is certainly an option. You know, for ELL learners and young learners, especially in our grade 10 level, the remote learning is very, very difficult for them, and something that we've noticed. So we would hope that we don't need to resort to this, but it is definitely on the table, I would say. And again, any final decisions would have to come from our head office according to the situation. But a great question, Daryl. And I think teaching remotely online is one of the potential things that could happen in September. And I hope that answers your question. Is there any other questions that anyone would like me to address before we tie up? Also, thank you all for coming tonight and joining in and providing your input. This has been a fun experience for me, my first webinar. Great, thanks, Daryl. So looking at our final poll, it seems like we do have a lot of people here who have been in the capacity of both mentor and mentee, which is great. You know, it's as a principal, I always like to see people with experience of other programs come in and give me their 2 cents, right? That's how we grow, that's how we build. And for those of you who have no experience, then this is something for you as well, and something that we look forward to offering you upon your arrival and making your transition to China and to Maple Leaf extremely comfortable. Good. Thank you everybody for your input there. That ends my webinar tonight on onboarding, recruitment, and mentoring. So once again, thank you all very much for joining us tonight. And I do sincerely hope I was able to help ease some concerns or answer some questions that you had towards you. Please be sure that if you, upon signing a contract, we are here for you 100%, and we're happy to place Zoom calls individually and set up one-on-one. And our recruitment representative, Selena Pan, is here as well. And should you wish to make any inquiries about contracts or on-the-spot interviews, please feel free. And Selena, I will turn this over to you. Everyone, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. And I look forward to hopefully welcoming many of you to our Maple Leaf team. Thanks. Have a great night, everybody. I'll also hang around for 1 or 2 minutes if there's final questions. Thanks. All right, Dennis, did you have a question there?
Yes, just shortly, Jono. In the area of Dalian, what is the prevalence of COVID? What is the situation there?
Very good question. COVID is in China. It is largely, I would say, under control. there is a couple hotspot areas in Jilin province up in the northeast region, and I believe Heilongjiang, and of course Hubei is still somewhat of a hotspot. Our Zhenjiang campus is quite free of any COVID concerns. There hasn't been a case here in months, and travel is also beginning to open up. So I've had some of my teachers travel on the fast train down to Shanghai, and you know, aside from a few looks and some overcautious security guys, it's largely been very good, Dennis. That will of course differ depending on which area of China you are in, but you know, knock on wood, so long as there is not any second outbreak, I would expect by August and September to be fairly clear.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. And Daryl, did you have another question? Sorry, I would need you to chat again as well. That is Daryl. I will put you over to Selena for that. For access to the Maple Leaf WeChat. She's in charge of that. And Frederick, access to the recording of the seminar. That is something that I will have to put you over to Selena as well. Great. So I've passed that on to Selena, and she will help the additions to the Maple Leaf WeChat account. Okay, everyone, I'm going to head out. Again, thank you very much for all of your questions and your interest. Last chance for any last minute questions. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap up here. Okay, great. Everyone, thank you very much. Have a great night. And I look forward to welcoming you to our team, and hopefully particularly the Zhenjiang campus, if you'd like to join my team specifically. Selena can help you out with that as well. Thanks, guys. Have a great night. Bye.